presentation precedes every, we've been doing introductory material that puts
Oh, so
context.
in the introduction?
Well, we're working on it.
Oh, I thought it was done.
Yeah,
No.
It's not in there.
I'll do
Uh,
Yep, I can do it. Just so you know, I was planning on doing an end of the year report. So there would be an end of the year report. This is a current annual contract. So if the contract were to come back for a review, part of the materials for that you would see an annual report summarizing how they have accomplished those deliverables.
I don't even know what
So-
the scope is, so that's why I'm
Can we-
asking you.
Tyler, can
Yeah.
you get back to the budget-related presentation, please?
Okay. So I wanted to propose some alternatives for you to consider. Over the last week or so, I've talked with a few individuals. This was an initiative that was created back in 2008, I think, or six. So, it's been alive for, 11 or so years. I know I've talked with Chris since, his retirement, gotten some more thoughts from him. I've talked with the new, committee chair of the advisory committee. So I think there's two alternatives that this board needs to consider. One would be removing 9,000 of the 52,000 from professional fees. This would be for Crystal's time and having that instead done in-house. As I mentioned, these would be 6 to 8 press releases. I've done press releases in the past. I mean, it's something that I'm very capable of. A lot of times what happens is I sit down with Crystal and I give her the information, and in that time I could already have half the press release typed up. So that's not really much more of my time. It's then the media outreach as far as emailing and calling media and having them or taking care of those, that part of it. But I feel that that's something that I could certainly make work in my workload, and having some of the more HR heavy paperwork tasks have our payroll specialist do, which he's more than capable. So that was one alternative that would lower professional fees from 52 to 43,000.
And this is an alternative to proposed budget.
Proposed budget, correct. I want to take that one step further and have you also consider a second alternative, which would actually be removing all the professional fees as well as our $10,000 contribution to the bike race. So if you look at the marketing budget, what that would mean,
Okay.
if I pull that up, 52,000 would go away. The 2,500 for the bike race would go away
What line, where's that?
under expenditures.
52,500?
You would have the copy and print costs, the postage costs, and communication publications modified based on what the current needs would be. Because under this proposal, we would have, the bid is already kind of taking the lead, but we had provided a contribution to the bike race. Now we would just entirely, it would be 100% on them. The advantage of this proposal is the school would get back 10,000, the bid would get back 10,000. So the bid would have an extra 10,000 that they could use, which part of that could be for the bike race.
How does, say that again, I'm sorry, how does the 10,000 go back to the bid?
For revenues, you'll see charges for service, you have 10,000 school, 10,000 bid. We would no longer need that because we no longer have professional fees.
But we're reducing it by 9,000 total, right?
We're an alternative.
This is alternative
Okay.
two.
Oh, okay, so we're just.
Sorry, yep, so
So how much would the professional fees be reduced in alternative two?
0?
to zero.
52,000.
All would go away.
What's the,
Professional fees meaning to establish, is that?
It would go away. we would no longer contract with Savage Solutions, as well as we would not contract with a PR individual.
Okay.
Okay, so that goes away entirely. You still have an advisory committee that meets to concentrate on strict strategy. It becomes more like a conservation committee, pet and bike safety committee, where they handle on the strict strategic parts. These are also great professionals that we have in the community that are trained in this area that would take a little bit more of a on-hands role with some of these items. But as I was mentioning in the budget, because we no longer have those professional fees, literally we have a $7,500 commitment for the bike race, which comes from the village.
For the 4th of July.
For 4th of July, sorry, I'm talking too fast. And then you have about $5,000 in copy, print costs, postage, and communication publications. And then we would probably want an additional, maybe up to $3,000 to $5,000 to design any posters or whatnot that we would need for our events. And that could all go, most of that could go between the village manager and the village board budget. So basically it would entirely deplete the marketing and communications fund. I think, this program has been along for 11 years, and talking with Gina and some of the others, I think the board definitely could reevaluate the program this year. Talking with Mark, if we were to do this, it would save roughly just over $30,000 of the $40,000 in property taxes, which that's something to consider as far as if you're wanting to lower the our portion of the property tax bill. That's one way that you can do that.
So is partners, has this been run by the partners?
I had a conversation with Erica, and Erica seemed that there would be no issue that if the board went with alternative 2, she would be supportive. I had a conversation with Gina as the chair. She's supportive. I think she's in a point, especially as a chair. I think some of the other committee members too want to take a more hands-on approach, and I think it would clean that up. One of the things, BID has their own marketing person, and there's a lot of confusion with what Sarah does versus Savage Solutions. I think that cleans that up a little bit, and it becomes a little bit more clean as far as what her responsibilities are for the BID. I was not able to have a conversation yet with the school district. I called Ted last week, was not able to get in touch with them. I asked him on Sunday to give me a call today. He must have not had time to do that. So that's the one group, but we do, Larry and I have a meeting tomorrow. So this is one of the agenda items that I hope to bring up. But I think there's support around that. If we were to go this direction, I think by having the marketing advisory committee take a more on-hands role, that this could be done.
And there is a projected fund balance in the marketing fund.
Yeah, Mark, do you want to address that real quick and how that would be done?
Sure. I mean, if the direction is to, well, first of all, this was in place when I came to the village, and there's no real accounting reason why this was segregated into a special revenue fund. Certainly there's some contributions from the school and BID that are earmarked for certain activities, but if pursuing alternative 2 would be the direction the board wants to go to, with those funds not being part of this, we would recommend that the board would take the line item for sponsoring the 4th of July event management of $7,500, and the village manager's budget take the various costs associated with continuing some of the communication efforts that still need to be done, and some of the graphics work, and that would be maybe $12,500. So at the end of the day, the total tax support for those two components would be about 20,000, which is 20,000 less than the 40,000 in the status quo proposed budget. Any residual fund balances then, we would close this fund and those would be transferred to the general fund reserves.
And is the proposal to do this at year-end 2017, or just let the funds
Absolutely,
clear
no.
out
No, it'd be,
year-end 2017?
it'd be a year-end close.
I think that's it. That's why I wanted to get to the end, because I think
Right.
based on those alternatives, that may change your opinion, so.
Okay. I still, no matter what happens with marketing, whether we go to A, B, stay the same, I still think the CDA should be involved. I said it, the CDA, you know, so they benefit from promoting our community, and it's a separate entity, just like the BID is a separate entity from the village. So they will, I'm a CDA member, and you might have some thoughts too, and I'd love to hear them, but I feel personally, my opinion is that the CDA, no matter what is decided, if it's just a committee level, but at somewhere there needs to be some representation. My question is, we talked about this in April, and what I supported the most was the press release, like the communication piece of the village's message daily, on a daily basis, the communication, not marketing, but that daily to the community. And press releases are one way that municipalities achieve that. There are other ways, you know, management, we have a lot of tools here. Your concern at the time, if I heard you correctly, along with some of the board members, was your time allocation. And I am in full support of continuing and even building upon, and I think that's in our training, we even discussed, you know, how do you get the village's message out rather than individual board members, but that piece was key. So I just want to make sure, no matter what the decision was, I'd like to hear your response to that, your thoughts of, how much of your time are you dedicating, you know, are you committing to on that piece? Because that's what always was the key piece for me.
Sure. As far as the press release work, I mean, you have 6 to 8, you know, a year. So, I mean, when Chris was still here, Chris would always sit down with Crystal. Since then, we put into a plan in place that started this year, since communications is part of my responsibilities, that I would do that. So this was the first year I've been meeting with Crystal. You know, by the time I give her the information that half of that press release could have been done, you know, I definitely don't have, you know, the connections that her or another PR agent may not have. That's something that I'm willing to work on. And as I mentioned, part of the project load, you know, now that I've had another year to think about it a little bit, trying to find ways to help the village when it comes to property taxes. And I think one solution is some of the more basic, I don't want to say tedious, but, you know, more, you know, easier work when it comes to some of this HR paperwork, that I can have another staff person do that. I mean, I think you're talking about, you know, maybe, I don't know, I mean, I would take whatever the 9,000 and her time and divide that as, you know, that's going to give you the hours of work that she's, you know, putting into it, which is what, about just under, you know, about 100 or so. So.
And we usually don't max out that budget.
Yeah, that's an up to.
But
That's an
she
up
only
to.
gets
I
paid
think
by
I think for this year we're happy. So it might be more like 50. So I think that's a great point. So you're looking at about 2 to 4% of my time.
And then there's a lot of that press release content that gets used multiple times, you know, through the village newsletter and social media.
Yeah.
You get
Yeah, a lot of it
your
I'll
workload.
be able to recycle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who does the grant, like the conservation committee wants a brochure or something, that's not, you're gonna farm that out to some graphic design, or are they doing graphic?
Yeah, well, that's what I would propose if you were to have a graphic design up to, you know, $3 to $5 grand, that someone wanted to do that, then you could use those funds to create it. I mean, that's the one thing that we absolutely do not have internally, and we would need some outside help for anything. And I don't think we want to get away from that. I think those materials are really helpful resources for residents.
Shorewood today has a number of graphic designers that they utilize as well, right?
They have a main one, yeah. Karen. That'd be the first person I would reach out to see if she had.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. So moving, if we moved into this direction, going back to the original question, you know, is there something we can give a new committee, you know, or the same committee, or whatever, however you set this up through JP&L for marketing? It's a similar committee as the other committees, right? It would be the structure of the marketing committee would go back to what we do for other committees.
This is a really good question. I wanted to address that too, so that's a perfect question. What I would actually propose, because right now with the advisory committee, we have like one resident rep that represents each partner, and then we have like one staff rep for each partner. I would actually, since they're gonna take a little bit more of an on-hands role, I think a good thing or change